Welcome to the Tactical Business Podcast. I am your host, Wade Skalsky, and today I am with Austin Fick. Did I get that correct?
Yes, yeah, pronounced correctly.
I did. So I'm always worried whenever I do the last name because I have a tricky last name, so I always have that slight twinge when I get it wrong. But Austin, how are you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, I'm excited. We had some technical difficulties on my end, but we got hooked up, so that's good. So what I'd like to do is just chat a little bit about sort of how you got into the firearms industry, a little bit of backstory, a little bit of kind of give the people who don't know about you an idea of kind of how you got to where you are right now.
Yeah, be happy to. So it's probably a little bit of a non-conventional route to get here. I don't know. I guess I wouldn't really know what conventional looks like, but we, we started out uh, uh, pursuing small business, and so been in the military for 14 years, active duty Navy, and that was going great. Kind of started figuring out that maybe that wasn't something that I wanted to go all the way to 20 with, at least not active duty wise. And so had met a couple of small business guys that I was very inspired by, entrepreneurs that were just doing great things. So for me, uh, I was looking for a small business and entrepreneurship, and I think a lot of guys go through this and they're like, all right, cool. The first thing you start looking for is a frozen yogurt shop or like a laundromat or whatever. And I'm not really sure to recommend that. A friend of mine was like, hey, like you've got to do something that you care about and that you're passionate about. And so I was like, all right, cool. A lot of different avenues you could go with that. One of those is firearms outdoors, and uh, and then as you build a network and you learn where to look for opportunities. This one came open, and it was the gun garage and shooting range here, to go purchase this company. And when we got into the details of it, it was a deal that made sense. That doesn't mean it wasn't there's really no small business deals out there that are perfect, but it was one that made sense for where we were at the time. And so I went from a firearm from being in the firearms industry. I mean, I went from having it as a hobby, something that I wasn't super active in. I had several guns. I would go shoot, I would say monthly probably. Um, but I went from that now to kind of rocket shipping into where I'm at now, where it's very immersive, and it's just like any industry that you get into, is you realize how deep the rabbit hole goes once you're in it. And it's been an amazing experience. Met a bunch of amazing people, with very talented people, very passionate people, and that's what got us here. Here we are. We're 4 months into ownership of the company, and that's what got us here.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing story on a lot of different levels and a lot of places we can start to unpack because I like what you're talking about how people think about the franchise route, right? And for me, thinking about a franchise is I always go into, there was a Toll House cookie place that was by my house that I used to go into every once in a while when I lived in LA, and the family owned it, but they were always there. Like it was either the dad or it was the son or it was the mom. And you really, I think he struck on a really good point of that you have to really love it because it's not just going to run itself.
Yeah, yeah. Anything that you do, because again, we were looking at things that, by the way, you can make money at all these things, but there really is, as an example, the laundromat thing. Uh, a lot of those, uh, you know, you may make good money at it, but man, it's going to burden your mind. It's going to burden your time, and when it's just something that you just don't care about, everything gets to be a job after a while. But like if it's just something you didn't care about from the beginning, you're probably it's gonna not be a setup for success in the long term.
So yeah, and I love sort of the path that one of the aspects of your path that I like is the buy versus build, right? Because I've talked to a lot of people that come from the armed forces background. I've talked to people who are from a civilian background, and most of them, what they'll do is they'll start the business and then they'll grow it in a mature market, right? So they've either been in there for a long time or they're competing with a business that has been there a long time. And so what was it about that strategy of of buying an existing business versus building your own appeal to you? Why did you go that route?
So yeah, man, we could do a whole podcast just on that one, you know. It was so again, kind of started down this entrepreneurship journey, got bit by this thing that just wouldn't leave me alone. And building is very like gratifying and something that sounds very interesting as a as a worker that I want to do. Maybe in the firearms industry, you know, aerospace is kind of my other side of things, and it all sounds interesting and fun and challenging, but building is an amazing time investment. It's time, it's money, it's risk, uh, and uh, and you can. There are guys out there. In fact, probably the most successful entrepreneurs are the ones that start in their garage because you have very little risk, and you can grow at exactly the rate that your customer base does and that your community does. But in my case, I decided that I wasn't at a point in my life that I wanted to spend that much time uh, in that I wanted to have that amount of time and risk involved in entrepreneurship, right? So just come off a lot of time away with the military. My oldest kid is 9 years old. My daughter's 9, and I figure, you know what, like I don't want to spend, you know, I think there is a lot of goodness in pursuing small business in entrepreneurship. I think there's benefit for the community, for the family. I think you can make decent money at it, but um, I also don't want to spend the next 10 years where she's really in, you know, the most formative period of her life, and my younger kids too. I don't want to spend that time married to this job that has that you're building, you know. So I was like, okay, cool. What are the other options to do that? And I started looking up, uh, okay, how do you buy a company, right? How much money do you have? You know, I'm not a rich guy. Um, how much money does it take to buy a company, you know, of certain sizes? What can I afford? What can I get financing for? And uh, and I decided that you know there was a size of company that I could you you know get some flavor of down payment on and get financing for that. While it's not self-sustaining, like it's not like you know running this company is not a side hustle. It's a hustle, which is exactly what I was looking for. But um, I can also I have enough faith in the way that it was running that you know I'm not at 8 o'clock at night. Uh, I'm not sitting there, you know, angrily typing emails and sending stuff out. Like there is the duties and responsibilities are already built enough in a structure that I can take care of it. I can nurture it and really pursue the foundational aspect of it and the growth, um, which is really what I like. You know what I wanted to be able to focus on. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. I actually ghostwrite for a business acquisition business where they teach people how to acquire businesses. And so, and I don't think there's a wrong way to do it. I think the build strategy is fine. It's just has different pros and cons, right? But for the buy strategy, what people don't understand is that 90 to 95% of all businesses fail within the first 5 years, right? Or something ridiculous like that. Like it's 9 out of 10. But if you have a business that has gotten a profit for 5 years, then that flips on your head when you buy it, right? So the key then is the problem for then is the financing is like, can you get an SBA loan? Can you find private investors? Can you come up with the money yourself? But if you can purchase a business that's been profitable for 5 years, your success rate goes to you. It's 90% chance that you will be in business in 5 years if you do your due diligence and if you do your research. So, I mean, that must have been a scary coming from the Navy and then, saying, okay, I'm going to buy this business, and it's a substantial risk in terms of the money that's involved. How did you do your due diligence? Like, how did you, because I bet you there's someone that's listening right now that doesn't want to go, because everyone that I've talked to, on the podcast in recent history has been a build person, right? You're the first buy person that we've really dealt with. Well, that's not true. A couple episodes ago, we had another person that bought the business. But how did you do your due diligence? Like, how did you figure that out? Like, okay, I feel comfortable enough to buy this business. Like, what involved in that process? Because someone's listening right now that may want to try to do that.
Yeah. So there is, I mean, it was an amazingly, it was an amazing journey, and I'm still on it now. You know, um, so once you kind of made a decision, like I think buying is going to be the route to go. It's like, okay, cool. How does this look? Well, uh, everything is on the internet, and so I just was like, okay, cool. Like, can you go buy businesses somewhere? And I found bizbuysell.com. Now there's a lot of stuff. There's a huge variety of stuff on it, and um, it's not like you know eBay or Facebook Marketplace where all the details are there for you to see. Because when companies are trying to when you're trying to sell a company, there's usually some aspect, or there's a significant aspect of privacy involved. The owner might not want the employees to know, might not want the customers to know. They probably don't want. They usually don't want their financial information, all over the internet. And so there's some tactics involved with that, and understanding what you're looking at. And so when I did that, we didn't end up buying a company off of that. But what I did is I had looked at a couple other companies, and as you start clicking around, the you meet a broker, and the broker knows the banker, and the banker knows the accountant knows the lawyer knows maybe another broker. And so you build, you talk to listen to any of these things, you hear people talk about the network that you build, and it really is true. And you've got to realize, like, when you're talking, okay, cool, like this guy is a good contact. I want to nurture this relationship, both personally and professionally. So that was really where it got started. And I met these people, and they all had some level of personal and professional interest in helping me along the way. So one thing I had to wrap my head around, and I think whether you're buying companies or cars or houses, I think this is one thing that you learn in time, is that there's no perfect deal out there, right? A lot of us, we sit there. I think the term is analysis paralysis, right? Because you'll see there, whether you're looking at, again, a house, a car, or buying a company, you're like, hey, cool, there's this aspect that's imperfect, and I really wish it was perfect. Okay, that's great, but that's not reality. And so you've got to really figure out what level of imperfection you can tolerate, whether that is a timing problem, whether that is a financial problem. Maybe it's really expensive. Maybe it doesn't make as much money as you like, but it's got other good things in one aspect. When you're looking at companies, to buy a company, maybe it's is the location something you want? For us, I was looking forward to moving back to Kansas. And so, you know, our our uh, you know, location wise, we were kind of just looking for in Kansas, to be in Kansas east of, Highway 135. That was pretty much our sandbox, which is a pretty big geographic area. If you want to stay in the town you're in, then okay, maybe I need to give a little bit on the industry side of things that I'm going to be in. Maybe I really wanted to do food service, but there's not a bunch of variety there. So understanding what things you can and can't be picky on, or that you're willing to be picky on, uh, and uh, and so that was kind of a process. I looked at two companies very seriously before this, and they were both manufacturing companies. So I started off on this journey wanting to pursue engineering and manufacturing. I joke about the laundromat and the frozen yogurt place because that was kind of that was very early on, like how would this look? But really, what I had set my sights on after a while was engineering manufacturing. That was, I wanted something that the community, that people need, not not a nice to have, And so uh, along that route was when Gun Grush came along, and we had looked at a couple other places, and they just weren't quite right. And I had spent some money looking at them. I do miss those dollars. I wish I had back. But that's just the way it goes. And they just weren't quite right. And then this deal came along, and it wasn't actually in the industry I was looking. I had never really thought about investing this much into the firearms industry. But the way that the deal shook out, it made sense. Now, as far as actual like nuts and bolts due diligence, you need to, either if you are not, highly financially savvy, you should bring somebody along with you. In my case, there was a gentleman who I met and got to know pretty well, and he did business valuations as like a side hustle. Um, and so he was able to look at a lot of financials for me, and he could kind of tell, okay, there's certain terms and phrases and lingo that just like in any industry that you need to learn, and he kind of introduced me to those, and in listening to him evaluate a couple different companies, I was like, okay, cool, here's the aspects that I'm looking for in like a profits and losses statement, right, in a balance sheet. And then you dive in a little bit more, maybe you aren't confident at looking at tax documents, but then you can really start understanding uh, what the financials of that look like. I would not recommend going it alone if if you're not confident, highly confident, like doing your own taxes, right? Then I would definitely not look into dissecting the finances of a $1 million plus business, going that alone. That would be challenging. But I'll bet you most people could find that there is somebody in their circle, 1 or 2 degrees of separation from them, that would be confident at that. And you're not paying an accountant $100, 150, $150 an hour. Don't feel like you have to pay. You have to pay somebody for every service you're going towards. People love to help you when you're starting something like this out. I certainly didn't. I had a lot of it, and I couldn't have done it without. Right. There's several names I could go through of guys that were helpful to me, that gave me a lot of their time and expertise, that they otherwise sometimes charge people for, and I could not have done it without those guys. And so you need to know when you meet them.
Yeah, I think you started to talk to it about your network, right? And so I think the biggest mistake that people make is keeping things a secret, right? And so I think if you tell your immediate group of friends and contacts, hey, look, I'm looking to buy a business. This is what I think it is. You'd be surprised how many people can help you with that, or maybe interested in investing in it, or just giving you free advice, kind of like what you got. And I think that's a great technique of doing that. It's almost a requirement for sure, because you can't do it by yourself. So you were saying going back to Kansas, does this mean that when you bought the business, then you then relocated as well? So you decided to increase your level of complexity and do a move and buy the business at the same time? You just wanted that challenge?
Yeah, the levels of complexity the levels of complexity were pretty. There were several of those. I was actually still active duty Navy
Mm.
when we bought it. Again, one of the things that I was had to figure, aspects that were imperfect was the timing of the whole thing. And I was looking at it, I was like, okay, cool. Like it'd be great if we could do this 4 or 5 months from now. But that wasn't the deal I had. The deal I had was 4 months ago. And so that's what we took. So for us, I had known that I was going to leave the Navy for about a year and a half, and so we had actually already moved to Kansas because I had a deployment I was going to go on, um, and so we had I shouldn't say we moved to Kansas. We had a house in Kansas, and that my family spent a lot of time at. And so we were already set up in the state. Didn't know exactly where in Kansas. You know, I looked at the airlines or going to other aerospace companies if if the entrepreneurship thing didn't pan out. Always have a plan B, right?
Hmm.
And so we already had roots in Kansas. My parents live here. My wife's parents all we live about an hour apart, and so that that part of it was kind of taken care of. Except, we ended up the company, the store and shooting range is about 2 hours away from where my house is.
Mm.
So we are relocating subsequently again, which we'd always kind of knew we were going to do. Um, but it's only 2 hours as opposed to across 5 states.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, for sure. Like, well, I mean, that's amazing. I mean, the fact, and that's another advantage of kind of buying something is like, kind of the area that you want to be in. You want to go home, and if there's something there that's a good fit. Were the first two, and then we'll actually get into what you guys do here in a second, but because I could talk about this all day. Um, were the first two businesses in manufacturing also in Kansas, or were they somewhere else that you were looking at?
Yeah, yeah, they were both also in Kansas. They were a little bit closer to where our house is at, uh, and uh, and so we were. I'm not particularly, like I said, we were just trying to be 135 or east,
Right.
but and that was where the other places we were looking at were. This ended up being a little bit further east than what we had planned on, but again, it's the deal that we had, and we're pretty excited about
Well, before we move on, I want to make one last point, which I think is really important for people to understand before we move on to what the actual business does and sort of your philosophy there is that I think the fact that you were willing to walk away from two deals that were geographically better, right, because they're closer to your house, that were kind of met that requirement but weren't quite right, I think is a really important lesson for people to understand because it's very easy to get caught up in the momentum of a deal. And I think it's important to know that like you're marrying your business almost like you marry somebody like a spouse. It's a big time commitment, especially if you're not just buying it. So I think that was a huge, probably is going to be a huge factor for your success that you were willing to walk away from those for whatever reason.
it. Yeah, it was both of them were one in particular was very tough. But and I told the guys at the time that it's still a really cool company, and I'd love to be involved in it. You know uh, I really enjoy this company. I enjoy the work. If it's and if there's another deal that comes my way that makes sense, and whether it's one of those previous ones or not, I told them I was like, let's talk about it if you want to, because there's an amazing amount of demand right now for uh for uh buying small businesses. That's another thing I found is and it's across all industries, but there's there's a bunch of guys that are looking to slow down and retire, and uh, owning a company is just not really something that uh, we all got encouraged to do a bunch in school, and so it's just not at the front of people's minds when they're like, oh, hey, I'm looking for a change, I want to do something different. They usually go look for a different job, which is still fine. I mean, I still have W-2 income, by the way. Uh, but uh, but once you kind of can shift that mindset, and you start looking, okay, maybe I don't need to, maybe I can trust myself enough to uh, uh, pursue something like this, then uh, you find that there's an amazing amount of people that are looking to sell companies of all sizes. And if you're ambitious, I think you can find the right deal.
Yeah, it's the silver, they call it the silver tsunamis because all the baby boomers are retiring. And then you have all the Gen X people who want to retire early, for example, right? So,
Yeah.
which is my people, which is the Gen X people. And so there is actually, and one thing that's nice about that is that because there's so many people trying to sell their businesses, you can, there is, and not as much demand to fill that, there is opportunities in terms of for the multiples in terms of buying one, right? Like you could probably buy one a little less expensive than now than you could say maybe 10 years ago or something, right? So I feel like it's a great time to sort of purchase a business. And they're kind of like tattoos. Like once you buy one, you kind of want to maybe get another one, right?
Yeah. You see somebody else with one walking down the street, you're like, I like that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now, well, because and you being in the military, and that's why I think it's a great thing for people in the military to think about is because when you buy a business, it's the leadership aspect of it was what you need. It's the strategy and the leadership side, right? And that is a skill set that really transfers across verticals. It doesn't matter if it's in firearms or you're buying manufacturing or you're buying a laundromat. The skill as the owner is the ability to do strategy and the ability to lead people. And I think that's something. What was your job in the military, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm a pilot.
Oh, another
I'm a
pilot.
pilot.
I was I can't I live in Virginia Beach, so I we have a lot of friends that are pilots. You can't, the special forces people and the pilots is like you can't spit and not hit one of those two people around here.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, sorry. A couple weeks ago, if this was a couple weeks ago, I could have come out and we could have done this in person.
Oh, we are out in Oceana. Yeah, nice,
Yeah,
nice. Yeah. No, I love my pilots. And they're fun. Because I'm too tall and my vision's too bad to ever be any kind of pilot or anything. But yeah, so that type of skill set, right? The ability to plan out a mission or just all the things that they teach you, whatever to do. I would think that has helped you a lot in terms of not only the process of buying that business but also sort of kind of running it now. Have you found that to be true?
oh, certainly. So, there's any any journey that you take through leadership, through coming up through, maybe you start mopping the floors and then you end up being the CEO, and wherever you start and stop in that process, you're gonna see examples of leadership and guidance that you like and that you want to emulate. You're going to see that you don't like. And I think if you're whether you work at Amazon or in the U.S. military, those aspects are true in either way. So I learned a bunch. You deal in the military. I learned a lot about whether it is dealing with people, whether it is understanding how to build and nurture an org chart. uh, there is there is a lot of difference in the HR mentality, right? Um, it's uh, at the end of the day, when you are in the military, especially when you're gone on deployment, there is uh, a it's very, very easy to foster a teamwork environment, right? And like, hey, I need you to do this hard and unpleasant thing because the team needs it, the mission needs it, right? And and in the civilian world, I find that that still exists. That is, it is not like that, like that is 100% absent. But it's just a different form of motivation and making sure that you can be what the employees need you to be, and that you can give them what they need in order to be effective and to be motivated at their job. And by the way, we've got a great staff at the gun garage. I mean, we've got and several of them are former military, right? But I've learned a lot about just the differences in personnel management, and you know it's not a huge surprise. I knew there was going to be things you don't know. That's kind of the another aspect of entrepreneurship is there's a bunch of people that are like, well, you don't know what you're getting yourself into, and it's like, well, yeah, nailed it. You know,
Right.
have you ever who has ever done anything bold and uh, big and known what they were getting into? It's you never do.
No.
but you
And
have to be
I,
willing to learn and deal with the challenges that you find along the way.
well, and that's what leadership is constantly going into. So I saw a really good quote in church yesterday and or Sunday, and it was leadership is so it was something effective. Leadership is doling out disappointment to your followers at a rate they can absorb, right? Or and I was like, yeah, I was like, that's awesome. And that's what
I like that one.
yeah, it's not that's not the exact quote. I'll email it to you if I find it who it's from, but it's because you're taking everybody into the unknown together. And this is a great transition, I think, to talk about what the gun garage actually does, right? So in terms of a
Yeah.
culture, so what does the gun garage do? I know it's a shooting range. So like what is it about the culture that draw you to buy it? What is it that you're trying to now bring to the business? Kind of walk us through that and because that kind of goes into the leadership thing and tell me about the business. Plus it's in Kansas, which is awesome.
So yeah, I mean, so Kansas is, being, start off like, okay, where do we want to be? Well, Kansas is a pretty underrated state. It's a great place to be. Of course, I got family here, but we were happy to get back closer to our family, closer to a place with maybe some space, and we were very excited about that. The gun garage is a little bit special because it has it in the city of Topeka and the surrounding areas. It's kind of the only uh, you know shooting range in the immediate vicinity, and we were really happy about that. And that again, you're talking about due diligence earlier. That was an important part of that, and it's like, okay, cool. Um, you know, it's there the barriers to entry to build a new shooting range are significant. And so I was real excited. I was like, okay, cool. We've got the only show in town for a sizable geographic area, and it's hard to build another one. So we were like, okay, cool. That's a positive. Now, the other thing too is that Topeka had kind of gone through a couple of other gun stores in the past, about 10, 15 years, that they all had their goods and their others to them. I had shopped at all. I haven't lived in Topeka for a while. I grew up here, but I seem to always be doing something with firearms as I came through town, and so I'd been to all of them, and they all had their different advantages and disadvantages. And the cool thing was is that when I shopped at Gun Garage as a customer, having no idea that I would go buy it someday, it felt like uh, early on that it sort of had it had the best marriage of all those goods
Mm.
that we had in town. And then I think a lot of the other stores had shut down. I think just gentlemen that had gotten older and wanted to slow down. And so, Gun Garage what was left, and I was like, what a cool opportunity to promote everything that the firearms industry has to offer. Kind of, we're not the lone voice in town, but I would humbly say that I think we are the most prominent voice in town. And so what I tell everybody is, we're here to promote safety, sport, and self-reliance in the community, and that's really what people come to us for. We get a bunch of people that walk in the door because they're wanting to feel safe in their house, right? I mean, you can talk all about crime in the country, and there's really uh, no there's not a whole lot of exceptions to that, and certainly the town that Gun Garage in struggles with crime that has been on the rise, and people are like, hey, this is making me nervous. I want to take this into my own hands. I want to get a concealed carry. I want to go through a concealed carry class. I want to take lessons, right? I want to understand what the legal aspects are of self-defense, use of force, use of lethal force, right? Uh, we get a lot of that. We get farmers and ranchers. We get a lot of profession. We get law enforcement. We get security companies that come through. They want to use their range. They want to purchase firearms. So that's kind of the safety aspect to it. That is, you can see a lot of direct feedback from that. Um, the sport aspect to it is one that is uh, very near and dear to me. I was a competitive bike racer in high school, loved it. and was very formative to me. And I think and I think a lot of guys, they get to college or they get out of college, and you kind of start your real life, and they get out of competing, right? And so the sport aspect to it, being able to bring in, competitive shooting again, and all of the variety that we have with the three ranges that we have, I think uh, is a way to help, uh, to help the community kind of find, adults, not just youth, although we want to have youth leagues as well, find that drive and the fulfillment and the vibrance that you get from competing again. I hadn't really done anything super competitive in probably 10 years or more. And actually, it was uh, a couple buddies of mine that, we went out to an 18 and over go-kart track, right? I mean, one of the ones, I mean, you got to sign a waiver, wear a helmet, age restrictions. And I mean, it was, and we were just thrashing each other, and it was awesome. I mean, I was bet $10 on a beer or something like that, and it was great to get. I realized I was so happy to be back in something competitive again. And I wanted to be able to give that to the community as well. And so we just finished our first run and gun course that we're going to be able to traverse through the ranges, and we're going to have a league this summer, and it's exciting. I mean, you've got the pressure of the time, you've got the pressure of people watching, and that really, you can bring out the best in yourself, and find a lot of, again, just vibrance in you that maybe a lot of adults kind of uh, let go by the wayside when in the reality of real life, and so we enjoy that. And then self-reliance, I think a lot of us in the firearms industry are just inherently value self-reliance, right? And whether that is being able to, certainly entrepreneurship is an aspect of that, trying to create your own resources there, but making sure that you're prepared for your car breaking down in the middle of the desert, right? In the middle of Kansas in the winter. You go off the road in Kansas in the winter. That happens all the time, right? And trying to help the community to like think about what are these things that I need to be prepared for, so that not only can I, not be uh, not be caught in these scenarios, but then I can be somebody that's going out and that's helping somebody else get out of the ditch when they're stuck. That's one of my favorite things to do in the winter. If we would take the truck and you find somebody, on a busy day, emergency services in Kansas are completely overwhelmed. They can't go pull everybody out of the ditches, and who knows who's in those vehicles. And so you can go help out with stuff like that. And of course, you can take that theme of self-reliance and apply it to whatever scenario you want, and however deep down into that rabbit hole you want to go, you know.
Well, and I think that one thing that I love about brick and mortar stores like your store, and especially the ones that have a range, is that they're kind of like the gateway drug to self-reliance, right? Because you may come in to buy a gun, but then you're going to want to shoot it. So then you're going to want to take classes. And then once you start to become proficient with the gun, there's so much depth to firearms. Then you start to think, well, are you in shape enough to run if you need to run? Do you know how to do medical, right? Like, because if there's a gunfight, someone's you care about might be bleeding, so you've got to know medical. So, and I think that's what people, they think about, like, a gun store is only a place where it's just like, oh, there's just commerce and transaction, but it's a huge benefit to the community because it creates safer and more competent people over time.
Certainly, I mean, customers are just a great group of people, right? And again, I think there's such a dichotomy between, let's just call it, the pop culture view of a gun store and then the reality of it, right? And you've just got a group of people that come through that are salt of the earth. Again, they're looking to make themselves better, typically, and self-improvement, whether that's in sport, whether that is in their preparedness, in their skills, that's what a lot of them are seeking, maybe at a more foundational level.
Yeah, no, and that's I mean, like I said, is that because I think the Second Amendment is under attack right now, I think and it always has been to some effect, but it goes in waves, right? But I do find more normal people because I'm on the normal person side of things. Like, yeah, I grew up in North Dakota. Yeah, I was hunting when I was young, but I was never in the military. And so and I was, my gun depth is pretty not super deep, right? And so, but I'm proficient. And and so you want to bring the more people, normal people you bring in, the more advocates we'll have for Second Amendment, right? And the more I think it makes it accessible on a political level as well, for sure. And so that's why I think it's so cool that whenever a gun store or a gun range has classes or does competitions or whatever outreach that they do, it really does make the community stronger. So I love that you're doing that. What does the next 5 years look like for you guys? Like, so you just bought the store, you've had it for 4 months, you're kind of working out the kinks. Where are you going to take the store in the next few years that it hasn't been before? Is it going to be just expanding the outreach like that, or do you have not that don't have that figured out yet? Kind of what are you thinking in that area?
So, you know, I think everybody, again, every entrepreneur kind of sits there and like, okay, cool. How can I grow? What makes sense? Where is the need? What does the community need and want? Um, Outreach and advocacy, I think, is a near term large thing that we're doing. We've got a couple groups that we're working with. It's kind of interesting, actually. We've had a group approach us that their whole um, that their whole shtick is reducing violence in the community, right? And and they walked in our door. They're like, "Hey, we want you guys to talk about firearms safety, about firearms handling," and that kind of took us by a little bit by surprise. We were like, "Hey, this maybe I agree with you, by the way, that this is an important that this is an important piece of your message. It's just not what we were expecting, you know." And so we're really excited. They've asked us to go talk at a lot of their different conferences and be involved in the um, the more foundational aspect of trying to make uh, cities and everyday life safer. So that's a near term thing, and part of that again is the sport and self reliance thing. We've got we are really looking forward to expanding our marksmanship leagues, and our classes are going great. So that's a near term focus of ours. We start talking about 5 years from now, and you know, uh, certainly I would like to, by that point, uh, have have some kind of a second store or more than that. But again, I think it goes back to, okay, what is where is the need in the community, and uh, maybe a store that is just the one location, or maybe only two, excuse me, that is, the premier location to come for those three things, for safety, sport, and self-reliance in Eastern Kansas. I'd be perfectly happy with that too. And then uh, from that entrepreneurship side, okay, cool. Like, what else is there a need for? Is there a need for, we've talked a lot about how fun it'd be to get into outfitting and stuff like that. There's a decent uh, there's a there's a decent cadre of guys doing that around. So there's that service exists, and they're doing a good job of it. But we looked into that. Personally, I'm interested in other back to aerospace engineering manufacturing opportunities that come along, and things like that. But for the gun garage, we want to make sure that we get our pillars, that we make sure that everyone in Topeka has access to those pillars, right? And then uh, we want to work out from there wherever there's a need. Most small towns have a gun store, and right now I've got no desire, even if I could go crush a local gun store, I've got no desire to do that. You know, um, I'm much more motivated at providing what this community needs, and then if there's another community that needs it somewhere else, I'm going and taking care of that too.
Yeah, no, and I think that's awesome. I mean, like I said, is the more, because there is a place online, for gun purchases for sure, right? Like PSA and stuff like that. But I don't think that you can replace the camaraderie and the knowledge base of a local gun store. And so there definitely is a need for that. I'm so glad to see that you guys are that you're kind of bringing fresh energy to Topeka. And I have a co-host who joins me every like 3 or 4 episodes. He's from Kansas. He lives in the sticks out in Kansas. He's in some like survivalist bunker somewhere where he's unknown. I don't know where he is even. So, but he's in Kansas somewhere. Well, great. Well, I know we're kind of running out of time right now. I had an awesome time talking to you today. I'd love to have you back on the show. How do people find you? I know that your guys' website is gungaragefirearms.com. And there's a contact form there because if someone wants a question, like what if there's someone who's an entrepreneur and they want to pick your brain, is that the best place to reach you is on the contact form on the website?
So no, the website's actually getting overhauled right now.
Okay.
So
Am I looking at the wrong
it,
website?
no, it's the top of it probably has a big picture of the outside of the building on it,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, so that's the right
All
that's the
right, cool.
right website.
Good, good.
Um, but we've got a lot of just accounts and things like that we're switching over. Uh, if someone was talk about entrepreneurship, just Austin at gungaragefirearms.com is the best place to go for that. That's my name. But that's where I would send him for that. Gungaragefirearms.com is the website, and again we've got an online store there that's also getting reworked. Real excited about that. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on X, and again I think everybody knows those platforms have different challenges to each one of them, but that is something that you have to be active on, and that we're excited to be a part of.
What is your handle on X? Because you have a link there I see for Facebook.
Let me make sure I say this right.
Sorry, because I had a sneeze there. I don't have a cough button.
It's
Yeah, because I see
it's,
you on
it's the gun. It's the Gun Garage KS, the Gun Garage, Kansas.
Gun Garage KS. Yeah, because Twitter, I'm very pro Twitter because one of my clients is on Twitter a couple of my clients are on Twitter that I go straight for, and I think it is the best place with the biggest wiggle for firearms. They still don't let you really sell anything on there, but it's still, for Twitter, I think, is the best place where you're not going to get just canceled out unknowingly.
We run into a lot of issues with other platforms, but yes, they are certainly the best. We'd love for them to be better, but they're the best right now. I think that style of forum is the future.
Yeah, 100%. And also the cool thing about X2 is that there's going to have a lot, into the finance side. They're going to go more like a kind of add a Venmo on there, and there's going to be a lot. I think there's a lot of growth potential on X for the future for entrepreneurs. And so I always encourage all of my firearms clients to get a position on X now, because I think they're going to be very happy they did 5 years from now. So it's cool. Yeah, I just followed. Yep. I'll try to drive some people to your X account for sure. So, all right, man. Well, listen, I really like I said, I loved it. It is called the Tactical Business Podcast. So the business part of it is why we get a lot of people, kind of tuning in. And I think you're going to help a lot of, you may spur a lot of people who want to buy a business, really encourage them to do that. So I think it was an extremely useful conversation today. So I really am thankful that you came on today, Austin. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the opportunity. Glad to be here, and we'll do it again sometime. All right.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you on again. All right, man. Have a great day.
Thanks, Wade. You too.